CPA. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of housekeeping. And now let's meet the team. First of all, the ATB team. We, of course, have Michael McIntyre, who is a highly experienced and chartered accountant and fellow CPA, certified practicing accountant. He sits on the board of several companies. He's the past president of the Parramatta Chamber of Commerce. And of course, he's worked with small, medium, and large businesses for many years. And together, Michael, Jim, and Paul are the directors of the Parramatta-based accounting firm ATB Partners, which was founded over 25 years ago. I think it's up to nearly 30. And of course, they are highly sought after. Michael is also a Business New South Wales councillor and sits on their economic committee, and he's the vice president of the regional advisory committee for Western Sydney. And he is an amazing visionary. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Anna, and thank you very much for the introduction. Very flattering.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's welcome Paul Rattray, who is a founding partner of ATB Wealth. He's a certified practicing accountant and qualified financial planner with more than 20 years experience helping individuals and small business owners to grow their wealth, as well as implement strategies in place to protect it. And Paul draws on the experience of his business partners and the great team that they've put together for the past 5 years. And he loves helping people to make a difference in their life. Paul's deep knowledge of finance, tax, and superannuation has helped countless people to navigate the GFC way back when, and now, of course, COVID-19, and still retire with their dreams intact. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Anna. Thanks for the great introduction there. Look, as I said, we're here to help. So anyone who's got any questions, please give us a call. While we're here, I'll just do the disclaimer. Can everyone please realise that anything we talk about today is going to be some great ideas and some great things we talk about, but it's only general advice. So some of these things might not suit your circumstances. So if you've got any questions, please call us and we'll see what we can do and tailor things to your own situation rather than just general information.
Lovely. Thank you, Paul. And of course, ask questions as we go through the presentation as we go tonight, as I said. And of course, we have a very special guest today. It's Rob McGregor, who has joined us. He's a joint founder of GPS Wealth. Rob has more than 18 years experience in some of Australia's leading financial institutions before launching his own successful practice in 2003. And through his own practice, Rob was recognized a need to give clients in the age bracket of 35 to 50 who are in the accumulation phase of life a simple, structured, and successful way of building wealth for retirement. And from here, he created Pathway to Wealth, which is the simple steps to financial success. And this program was recognized as a finalist in the 2009 Asset Innovation Awards, which was hosted by the Australian Financial Review. And now Rob trains and mentors financial advisors around the country to build their ideal practice, work with ideal clients, and give great advice. And Rob has been recognized through a number of awards, including Financial Planner of the Year in 2010 and National Top Producer in 2011 from a previous dealer group. Now, Rob, first of all, welcome. And you co-founded GPS Wealth. What inspired you to do so?
It was really interesting. I'm a practicing advisor. I was an accountant prior to that. And after, at that stage, there was about 15 years as an advisor, and we were having some good wins for our clients. And a lot of our colleagues in the industry started to say, what are you doing there? What are you doing there? And they kept saying, can we use that? We developed a lot of frameworks, a lot of IP, and we found the industry was dominated at that point by the big institutions, the big banks, the big insurance companies, AMP, the banks, etc. And at one point, they controlled 80% of the advice industry. And we thought that was incredibly unhealthy. And we wanted to provide a license for people that didn't want to be part of a product focus. So all of those big institutions, they were selling their own financial products. To me, that's not what real financial planning is. So that was the driver. And we made a decision that if we were going to start a license for other advisors to use, it would have to be one that would benefit everyone, starting particularly with the end client. So everything we do is aimed at helping people build their wealth and achieve financial independence. So it's what, our passion is real financial planning.
And you represent this as the game of money. So tell us about the game of money.
Yeah, so the game of money was a concept we came up. We set up, the other co-founder of GPS Wealth was an accountant. So we always thought that accountants and financial planners working together or under the one roof is a really good combination for people. But if you ask accountants, if you ask members of the public, what does a financial planner do? You'll get a million different answers.
Yeah.
So it's often very hard for people to understand. That some people think, oh, you're the investment person or you're the insurance person or whatever. But real financial planning is different. So we created this simple analogy, and the game of money is a softball or baseball diamond, and everyone starts off at home with no direction, no idea, no plan. So we leave school, we leave university, we start a business, and our life is very simple financially. Eventually we move to first base. And for most people, that's somewhere around 30 plus or minus 5 years, depending on how quickly they're moving. And that's where we start to become financial grown-ups. We buy a house, we need to get insurance, we've got to get a mortgage. We start to have to do all those big adult person things. And all of a sudden, we want to be doing those smartly. So first base, the key for us at first base, that time we're about to buy a house. Now, eventually you get a house, you've got a mortgage, you start to pay off your debt, you wake up one day, let's call it, this is our second base. So it's around about your 40s, plus or minus. Some people get there quicker, some people get there slower. Some people come back to it after things like divorces, bankruptcies, whatever. But that's a point where you've got your home, you've built up some equity, and all of a sudden you start to think, retirement's a real concept. Contrasting with, when you left school, when you left uni at 21, retirement's so far away. That's what old people do. You're young, you've got but all of a sudden at 40-ish, you start to think, well, I actually do want to be able to be financially independent one day. I do want to be able to retire. So you start to try and work out, gee, do I put more into super? Do I pay off the mortgage? Do I buy an investment property? Should I buy some shares? There's a lot of decisions. And wherever you look, you see vested interests. You go to the property guy, he's going to tell you to buy property. You go to those financial institutions I was talking about, they want you to put money in their financial products. It's very hard to find impartial and advice that's not that product led. So, and that's where we created our Pathway to Wealth program specifically for those people. And that then eventually builds them to what we call third base or countdown to retirement. So this is all of a sudden where someone's, call it around about 50, once again, plus or minus 5 or 10, but all of a sudden retirement's real. We say, this is where people are saying, I definitely want to retire in the next 5, 6, 7, 10 years. Am I there yet? Am I doing the right things? Have I got enough put away? What am I going to need? How much am I going to need to be able to retire with? So that's our countdown to retirement. And eventually, if we get it all right, and when people get good advice from a good planner and they put into action, they do actually get there. And that's where you hit the home run. You can retire in style, however you've defined that. And what we love about this is if I ask anyone, whereabouts are you on that game of money? Once I've explained it, they can say, all right, I'm at first base, I'm at second base. Yeah. So it gives them an obvious starting point. And quite simply, the role of your financial planner is to take you from where you are now to where you want to get to. And by executing good strategy over a period of 5, 10, 15 years, however long it takes. So that's it explained in a nutshell.
That is fantastic. Thank you very much. It's so simple and easy to follow. So, Michael.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Anna and Rob, that when we were looking for a licensee to work with us, because we are predominantly accountants like Rob was, that's the way we looked at things. We talk about, as you can see in the background of Anna's picture, they're talking about taking control. And most of the as Rob rightfully pointed out, the financial planning out there was by the larger institutions, and it really didn't work for our business owners. Most cases, well, all of our cases, our business owners, they're pretty savvy people. But what they look to us for and Rob for, I guess, is the big strategies around how to get to that goal, And what I love about this is retiring style financial independence. That is the ultimate goal for most people. This helps us get there by saying, well, you're on somewhere between first and second base, and here are the strategies we can help you put in place to get to where you want to go, as opposed to, look, here's a product, sign up for it.
Key differential there. Yeah, thank you, Michael. Okay, so we're going to move on to why financial planning.
Okay, Anna, I'll take over this one. This is very simple. Most people want to succeed. If you look at everything that's there, most people want financial independence. Everyone says that financial success is one of their top goals. But as you can see from the stats there, most people fail. I mean, when people talk to us, you say, how much money do you want to live on? And normally a couple will say $80,000 to $100,000 per year. Now, when you look at that stat that only 80% get to 300,000, you can actually see that what people want and the reality actually generally don't line up. And, Rob's game of money chart's fantastic because most people come to us when they're ready to do the home base, but they're actually still round on second base. And what they want and what's achievable can be very difficult. So these stats are really good because it actually shows people that you've got to start early. You can't just assume it's going to happen. You can't just say, oh, I want to retire in 2 years. So even if you've got in one of those 10% that has $500,000, you're still not going to be able to have an income of $80,000 or $100,000 per year for the 30 years of retirement. So what this really tells us is that probably only the top 5% of people actually get that financial independence that people actually want. Is that how you see it, Rob?
Yeah, and it's scary. We're about to get a federal budget come out. Every year I lock myself away, look at the numbers, and I present on that to a few different sources. But what hasn't changed in the last, and this program that I created is about coming up to 15 years old. And what hasn't changed in that, the numbers might have changed slightly, but Treasury still projects that 80% of people will be fully dependent or semi-dependent on a government pension. And they project that for the next 30 years. So they're saying that even with compulsory super and everything else, there's less people going to be on a full pension, which is good, but they're still all going to be on part pensions. And for our clients, typically, as you guys talked about, they're going to want that 80 to 100,000, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. It's very personal. It's generally whatever you've been used to living on. If you've been used to living on 120,000 a year, and you've got to go back to an age pension of 37,000, that's a massive pay cut. That's what we call a fiscal cliff. That's dropping over the edge. And so these stats, they're round numbers there. They might have changed at the fringe, but by Treasury's own papers, 80% of people will be dependent on the government in one form or another. And the bottom 50% is they've pretty much got nothing. Now, most of the people listening today will be in business. So, it's an awesome way to build wealth, but often what can happen, and I've been in my own businesses for 25 years, if you think that's going to be your only key asset and something goes wrong with that, you can all of a sudden be in with these people that don't reach financial independence. And where business creates a profit and some of that profit can be put into your future, then you can very easily hit those sort of goals where a really good retirement is highly probable.
Right. All right.
So that brings us, I guess, to the next slide, which what is financial planning, and I guess why, what's it about? What do we, when Rob talked about this a bit earlier, people have a different view on what financial planning is, but this is what we see financial planning is. and they're there. So let's just talk a little bit about things like number 2, achieve your financial goals. So it's not about putting 9.5% away. It's about what do you need to put away to achieve your financial goals. It's about working out where you are in that baseball diamond, where you are today, and then what you need to get there. And that's talking about, the plan where you want to be, the strategies you need to get there. And I think I'm going to ask Rob about this one because most of planning in any business and strategies are great, but if you're not reviewing them and if you're not being accountable to make sure you're on track, most of them go off the rails. Do you find that, Rob?
Yeah, there's a great quote by Dwight Eisenhower, the late US president and general, this is kind of ironic. He says he's found that plans are useless, but planning is critical. So any plan, whether it's a business plan, a holiday plan, a financial plan, a war plan, they're out of date with the first contact with the enemy, as they say. So as soon as you going on a holiday, you arrive somewhere and it's not what you thought, you've got to adjust your plan. So all the best plans never happen the way we plan them out. But the planning process is critical because it makes you think about what you want. It makes it think about how you're going to get there. It helps you work out some of the risks, and it helps you then have a place to pivot from. So what I've found over the years, having a plan in place, and in a time as planning for clients, we looked after hundreds and hundreds of clients, and their life never went exactly to the plan, but they hit their goals even if those goals change. And it's the same with business planning, holiday planning, all those things. If you're not constantly saying, where am I now? What am I trying to achieve? Are the strategies I'm doing taking me there? And reviewing, you've got all the changes that happen. We talked about a budget coming up. There might be tax changes, change to super rules. Look at the market changes over the last 12 months. So there's opportunities and threats all the time, which means the best plans, they're not in constant change, but they're under constant review, so you can hold the course, change where you need to, and ultimately hit those goals. And the research is clear on this. Good financial advice gets people towards those goals.
Rob, I also find that when you have those open discussions with clients, particularly couples, they tend to then have deeper conversations themselves about what they want. And,
Absolutely.
They may come in with a certain view, and you open up that whole conversation about, where do you want to end up living? What do you want for your kids? And all of those conversations. They go away and have that really deep conversation. And it's not one conversation, so it's probably a series of conversations. And they come back and they I don't know that it's 180 degrees, but generally it's a little bit different to what they had sort of envisaged. And then I also find them really comfortable because they've had the opportunity to say, this is what I want, this is what we want, and we can actually get there. So let's work it.
Absolutely. And it's quite humbling to help people with this because most people their past experiences in the financial world haven't always been brilliant. They get products shoved in front of them and they think they need to buy the right products to get to the end. And you do need the right kind of investments. There's no doubt about that. But the financial investments, whether it's property, shares, super, and most people need all of those in one form or another, they're the means to the end. They're not the end in themselves. And just being able to pause with people, as you guys do, and get them to think about what that end game looks like. What does a good retirement look like for them? Is it travel? Is it, chasing grandkids? Is it, whatever it is, what is it to them? Not to us, not to anyone else, but what's it look like to them? And then what does that cost? Are they going to have enough money? And it's not always black and white. You might be spending a lot if you're retired at 64. You might be spending a lot for the first 10 years, not so much after that, and a bit less. So, and I don't know what you guys have found, but I found a lot of people are closer to retirement than they think, and they'll often work for longer because they're worried they're not going to have enough money. And when you can sort of explain that if they get to here and they manage it in a certain way, they'll actually be able to retire sooner. And that not everyone does, by the way. It's interesting. Some people are quite happy working a bit longer, just knowing they can. But for some people, that's life changing.
It's funny, Rob. I had a couple come in probably a month ago now who gave the standard answer that they wanted 100,000 to live on. But then when we did the budget planner, we actually found they were surviving very easily on $60,000 after tax now. And we realised that they weren't going to change their lifestyle that much. They didn't need as much as they thought, which brought their retirement ahead by about 5 or 6 years. So it's amazing what you find out when you just go through, as you're talking about, setting the goals and what do you actually want. It can be quite different than what you started out as.
Absolutely. And you also would have seen, Paul, people that are the opposite. They say they need 100,000 to do their budget. And you go, you're actually spending about 150. And that's cool, but you're really going to have to do some work to get to that for retirement. And then, but then when you're doing your job properly, as you guys do, you'll find out that some of that 150 is on private school fees and mortgages. And when you back that out, then maybe retirement is 120, maybe it's 80. It doesn't actually matter what the number is, as long as you've got the confidence that you're going to be able to hit it and stay there in retirement. And and that's the fun bit for you guys and for us, is helping people to get to those end goals. And there might be other goals. That's a retirement goal. But then you've got legacy goals, how much you might want to leave to kids, grandkids, how much of a difference you might want to make. For some people, they hit retirement, as a lot of people have had kids later, you get the double whammy. They'll hit retirement right when their kids are going to uni and they're trying to get in the housing market, and right as their parents go into aged care. And that's like, whoa, that might be extra financial impact. Some people will be inheriting, some people will be funding their parents. So all of these things a good financial plan brings into play, and you create the goals and the strategies to get to all those things. And then, as you mentioned, Michael, the house decision. Are you in the forever home? You're going to need to renovate it. You're going to tree change. You're going to sea change. You're going to move into the city unit. You're going to have 2 houses. This is the fun bit about planning. And you guys would see it too. You see people's face. They look at each other and go, oh, we've always wanted to blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you're having a real conversation about real things that are important to them, not look at this BHP versus Rio Tinto, or this managed fund versus that managed fund. Most people don't care about the means to the end, as long as they know they've got quality investments that are going to help them out at reasonable price. But what they care passionately about is those goals and that outcome at the end. And I assume you guys find exactly the same thing.
And I think, Rob, you've hit the nail on the head. That is what the financial planning is about, not what the return on BHP is. It's whether you reach your goals, you're comfortable, and there is enough there to see you through to, the point when you're not here. It's funny because personally, my wife and I have been having the same conversation, and our conversation ended up with we're going to do some renovations in the home we're in because that's where we want to stay. And that's not always the case. Other people tree change, and that's fine. It's all part of the process. Excuse me. Yep.
And everyone reserves the right to change their mind. If you're starting out and you're 45, you might think you're in your forever home, and at 55, you might be deciding you're going down the coast. And that's where, to be able to come back, and this is this review process, to sit down with your trusted advisor and say, hey, we're actually thinking about moving down the coast now and retiring. Does that make us closer, further away? And to be able to sit down, calculate the numbers. For some people, and you guys are in Sydney, there's a lot of people that have enjoyed the benefit of the property market, and all of a sudden, if they are going to tree change, sea change, or whatever, there might be some capital they free up that gets them to that retirement goal quicker. And conversely, they might want to move into a beachfront property in Sydney or something that's mean they're going to have to put away more money, to get there as well. There's no right answer in this stuff, and it's the hardest bit in life is often working out what you want. And then if you've got good experts, as you guys do, you can then help them how to get what they want, and or tell them if it's going to take longer, shorter, etc. and help people practically execute that plan.
Excellent.
That's a question. Is it ever too late? What if someone hasn't had any advice and they feel like, oh, it might be a little bit too late for me? Is that a consideration, or is it never too late?
It's never too late. Most people, when they start with a plan, I wish they'd started earlier. So nearly everyone says, "Oh, I wish I'd met you 10 years ago." So the next best time to 10 years ago is right now. So, and it's one of the things, and we'll talk about this in a minute, some of the enemies of financial success, but procrastination and missing out on time is one of them. The things people need is resources. So the resources you'll tend to have is your current assets and your cash flow. So the only where it's harder to help people is if they don't have any assets and they don't have any cash flow, because all you're going to tell them is go and get some cash flow. So you have to earn more, so but for most, coming from that, working with business clients in the accounting space, most have got decent earnings. They want to maintain that standard of living. So then it's just diverting some of that cash flow from current spending towards the pot that's going to build the assets for the future, and having enough time to allow the market gravity to do its work, whether that's property market, share market, or best of all, both. Letting that do the heavy work, and that's where time is critical. So if you've got 15 years, it's actually not that hard. Now, it's easier for me to say it's simple, but simple doesn't mean it's easy. Otherwise we'd all be thin, have perfect abs, healthy. There'd be no divorces, because the recipe's simple, but it's not easy. And that's where having that outside accountable advisor, etc., can help get people there.
Great segue onto our next topic, which is 10 reasons why people fail.
Okay, well, I think most of these are fairly obvious. Number one is quite interesting, because 20, 30 years ago, it was the first one, it was lack of information. Now, I actually think it's gone the other way. I think actually there's too much information out there, and most of it's not independent. Like Rob and I were talking earlier about this before we came on. Most people get their financial advice from the news, from newspapers, from barbecues. Everyone's got an opinion, but most of them don't suit your circumstance, and most of them are irrelevant, or they're old, or they're just not the right thing for you. I mean, when you look down that list, I'm sure most of us use all those reasons for different things. And financial planning, it's just so important to just ignore all those, and I suppose just jump in and get started. That's probably the biggest step.
Rob, what do you see as the three biggest pitfalls?
When and you guys have been to these and you've run these as well, but we'll often run what we call that Pathway to Wealth seminar, and this slide comes from that. We'll often ask the audience, what are the biggest three dangers to you? Pretty much everyone includes procrastination, so then they'll have other bits and pieces. So and we're human beings, so we all procrastinate most of the time. So the key with procrastination is to eventually say, there's a great book out that I love, and I forget the author, but it's called Who Not How. So what a lot of people spend their life doing is trying to work out, how am I going to do this, instead of saying, who do I need to help me get this done? Because for most of us, we won't get it done till we find the who, till we find the right people that are going to help us work out what to do, how to do it, and then give us a nudge to actually get it done. Because most people and keep in mind those statistics, most people don't get there. So some will, and some people, it's a small minority. I've been in the financial markets and financial advice industry for it's a bit scary now, 36 years. But I've met relatively few people that will comfortably get there. And they absolutely exist. Let's call it maybe 1% of the population. But that's not good odds for most. And the evidence here is crystal clear. Good advice adds value to people. And the number one pitfall, when people always ask me what I think, is that people fail to execute a plan. Now, there's a lot of dimensions to that. They either don't have a plan, but the failing to execute, so not doing anything, number 8 here, not taking action, thinking about it, planning to do it, researching, all these things. And they're totally understandable. People have this fear factor. They're worried about making a big mistake. So that's the biggest thing, and that's natural. So that, you know, one of the most valuable things that you guys bring to your clients is that simple thing of helping people make smart decisions and avoid big mistakes. And just by doing that and getting action, people will get results. And the tide of the markets can come and go at different times, and none of us are going to try and predict that. But if you put the right pebbles in the pond, so to speak, they'll build over time. And most people just get stuck in the headlights. That, you know, Paul, to your point, you know, when we started this process in 2006, we just had lack of information on this slide. But in the age of Google, I mean, you Google property investing or share market investing, and you get millions of answers, or wealth creation or retirement planning. And the top answers are not the best advice. They're the people that are the cleverest marketers or paying the most money for the Google AdWords and everything else. So, and maybe they'll be good, but maybe they won't. And that's part of the reason we just like working with planners who are accountants or in an accounting practice, because they already have a relationship with clients. Clients already trust them. So they're the obvious choice to help them to that next step.
I agree, Rob. And, you know, one of the things that's sort of there, but it's not sort of explicitly stated, is those that follow the market. And by that, I mean, you know, they've seen Bitcoin go up, and then when it's at the top, they buy in, and they don't understand why they haven't had the 15,000% gains that everybody else has. And that happens also sometimes with a property cycle. So it's more about, I guess,
I reckon
that magic solution, you know?
Yeah, I was about to say, Michael, I think they fit into that bucket. And what we find is when people do leave it too late and they're busy, so distraction drives from the busyness of our life. And if you ask anyone, how you going, they nearly always say, oh, really busy. You know, it's hard work being a family member, a parent, a business owner, and everything else. Finding time for your health and all this stuff is actually hard. And what happens is often people leave it too late. They're distracted, they procrastinate. Then all of a sudden, someone says, "Oh, come along to this seminar," and they stand in front of a property spooker, and all of a sudden they own a house in Gladstone or somewhere because they thought they should do something, and they ran into a product sales that they thought would get them there. So I put all those into that magic, believing in Santa Claus, and there's a lot of speculative investments out there we probably don't have time to go into, but things like Bitcoin and other things, they're not investing strategies, they're speculation strategies. It's where people are trying to get rich quick, which is often has the result of get poor quick, and whereas get rich steady actually works really, really well and almost with total certainty. So if you do those smart, simple things, buy a decent property, look after your super well, make sure it's got a growth orientation, dollar cost average into the share market. If you do the smart things, and I always want to qualify that because we do sometimes make it sound too simple. But when people go away from watching things like this, the thing they've got to ask is, am I actually going to get this done on my own? And the overwhelming evidence says 99.5% of people won't, for all possible reasons, too busy, not confident enough, etc. So the key is when you get the itch to that you want to do something smart towards the future, to sit down with people you trust and start planning about the whole thing.
Exciting life, boring money.
Yeah, that's been our investment philosophy for well over 20 years now. And the longer we've had it, the more you see it actually working beautifully. You just think about any property you bought 20 years ago that you just held on to, and it almost doesn't matter where it is in Australia. It's laughing at the moment watching prices of Hobart have caught up to the price of Perth and Brisbane properties. Whether that stays there on, who knows, not trying to predict, but it's been spectacular. And any property in any capital city in Australia in the last 20 years has gone up massively. And the same as a decent share portfolio has also increased incredibly over that time. So, and that is our philosophy, as you know, Michael, well. So we do believe, and there's always people that are going to do differently this, but we believe people should have an exciting life and boring money and not the other way around. And I see a lot of retired. It's usually guys, by the way, who want to sit at the computer all day and watch the share market and buy this and sell that and read the papers all day, although they're probably online these days. But it's not much of a life, I wouldn't think, in retirement. Now, some of them love it and good luck to them. But for most people we meet who've been in business and the like, they look forward to a life of doing other things, not trying to trade shares and do stuff, which, my last gig as an accountant was as CFO of one of Australia's top stockbrokers. And I saw that action of buy, sell results in most people losing money, whether directed by stockbrokers or newsletters or themselves. Too much action. And you touched on this before, Michael. I think we've got they never take action, but too much action is also, you can probably do this on a lot of things, on a lot of these reasons, but if you take them, they never take action. Too much action is also a challenge. Over trading. If you look at the don't believe they can, the ones that totally believe they can when they probably don't have the skills would be another one. So you can probably put the opposite of all these things as well in some ways, except I don't think you can ever start too early. So
No, I think so, Robin. I was going to say, the reverse of being exciting money, boring life. Think about watching your team playing football, and that's an exciting game until they lose.
Exactly.
But it's still an exciting game. So I'd rather have a boring thing where we just win all the time.
Absolutely.
Michael, you're a Tigers fan. They don't win at all.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was a very exciting game against South last week, but we lost.
Got close, though. Got close. Yeah.
We got close.
Exercising patience there, Michael.
Yes, and it like the markets will turn around. Even the Tigers will have their day.
Just hang in there, Michael. They'll get there.
I think I can only look at number 5, the Magic Solution with the Tigers at this point in time. Oh dear. Let's move on with.
All right. But before we do, I just want to say, and just to add to number 10, they don't get help, but they don't get the right help, perhaps.
Correct.
SI is another.
And it's the wolf masquerading in sheep's clothing here, and I talk about what I call sometimes the financial industry triads, and I'm not talking about offshore gangs or anything. I'm talking about the 3 enemies that are compounded by a 4th, and the first one is just the big end of town, the banks, the insurance companies, who can't help themselves except have a product focus. So when they train their advisors, they're actually training salespeople on how to sell financial products. That resulted in the industry super funds, who provide a very good vanilla option for those that don't want to get help, but they try and keep it simple. You've seen their ads, so they're not giving people advice on strategy and sophistication of structures and tax planning and how to get a little bit of extra out of their investment. So that's 2 of the triads. And the 3rd is the action industry. So that's newsletters. Some people say, I'll just subscribe to, I won't name any names, I don't want to get sued, but there's plenty of these newsletters that look more like horse racing tipsters, but they're share tipsters and everything else. And they love working hand in hand with the stockbroking community. And I spent 12 years of my life in the stockbroking world. But it's an industry that gets paid by turnover. So they want you to every now and then sell BHP and buy Rio Tinto, sell Commonwealth Bank, buy Westpac. If they say you've got a really nice, boring portfolio that's going to do well, and they keep saying that every year, they make no money. So, they have to keep it action. And all those 3 are compounded by the media, who's going to make the world look terrible all of the time, despite it being good. And I know we've had an interesting year, but even in the COVID year we've just had, good quality investments are ahead of where they were a year ago in the share market and the property market certainly. And people that took advantage of that downturn by being contrary and bringing forward their super contributions or taking the opportunity to buy property before it came up while interest rates were so low, they've reaped the benefit of that. And it's exactly about finding the right help. And my encouragement, that's people that practice what I call real financial planning. And you can tell when you've found the right help, because the conversation is about you. It's about your life and your goals. It's not about, they don't whip out the prospectus or the photos of the property as the first thing. And we're kind of addicted to that. People love a bit of action. So it's a real danger, because I can say all this to you now. But then if I say, oh, by the way, I've got this investment that's going to pay 15%, I'll guarantee it'll never go down, people are going to say, oh, really? Tell me all about it. So yeah, you've got to be so careful. And I should point out, yeah, and you guys would see this too, but one of the big dangers at the moment is interest rates are so low that particularly for retirees, but for people that have got a lot of cash, they're tempted to start to stray into areas that they're not comfortable with because they're not getting a return. And some of those areas can look attractive. You'll see ads for people paying 7 or 8% interest rate, but effectively you're lending money to people who lend their money to property developers and others and take a lot of risk. So yeah, and that's where that trusted advice is so important.
Okay, well, let's step into the secrets to success. What do we need to be doing?
Well, there's 4 things there. Simple. And Rob's touched on this earlier, but we really believe that we don't want to overcomplicate what we do. We want to make it transparent, simple, and base it around strategy rather than product, and based around and I don't know if we got the the share market charts, but if you look at the share market charts, if you look at the property charts over the long run, they do very well. Hopping in and out of markets, you can make money if your timing is absolutely excellent. You can also lose a lot of money if your timing is bad. So if you're forced to sell because you're overgeared, or you've got too much property in your investment portfolio, you can lose a lot of money because you're forced to sell. So we keep it simple, keep it based around the principles that we know work and have worked over a long period of time and are very successful with our clients. I'll talk a little bit about the strategies. So again, this is not rocket science, but it's, particularly business owners, minimize tax. Get your money into places where tax is not as high as it can be. That's structured, it's self-managed super, that's, all of those things. But also, there's a lot of difference between profit and cash flow for business owners, and also for people that are not business owners. You have cash flow, you've got income coming in, so be smart about how you use that cash flow. We're not going to go into the detail now. And then finally, most of superannuation, and why? Because it's effectively the lowest taxed form of investment in retirement. It's tax-free. When you're not in retirement, it's 15%. So that's that is a low tax rate. But also, from business owners' point of view, superannuation is also quarantining it from risk. And again, we won't go into too much of that because most business owners know that. I'll let Paul take over the next 2.
Thanks, Mike. A reason why, and we've touched on this a lot, is that plans don't work when people do it themselves, because they don't do it, right? They do the plan, they work it out, and then life takes over and it just doesn't happen. So what we do with our clients is, and this is part of the GPS wealth strategy, is that we try and have it structured and systematic, so it just happens. It doesn't rely on you to be participating all the time. Now, if there's regular contributions, they actually just happen without you having to do anything. We keep an eye on the investment. So basically, once you make the investments, you don't actually have to do anything as a client. Like, you obviously look at it, you talk to us, but you don't actually have to do anything to make it keep working. And probably the most important out of all of them is you just got to start. Even if it's really, really small, any start that you make is better than not doing anything at all. And once you get started, then you can build on it, start a small contribution. Yes, I can afford that. Just gradually increase it. You get a pay rise, or if you finish paying off the car or something, if something changes, rather than just absorb that money, you can just put it towards the investment, right? And that actually means that you just start building, and the bigger the asset base you get with compounding interest, the quicker it builds. So probably out of all those things, I actually think the fourth one, starting, is the most important.
Paul, I can just comment on that because a little bit earlier today, I was with a new client of ours for the accounting side of the business, and for many years he was in a partnership. And because he was in a partnership and we didn't look after him then, there was no need to contribute to super. We're now starting to talk to him about, you know, when you start to move towards transitioning your business to your son, etc., what are you going to live off? And he's come to the realisation he's got a very, very minimal super balances because he didn't start. You know, 20 years ago, if he put away $5,000 each year, which I'm sure he could have, because, you know, it's sort of $100 a month or a week or whatever it is, you know, but if he'd started, he would have something to build on. Right now, he's not got a lot. So we've got to really, I guess, ramp up what he's doing over the next 5 to 6 years.
And look, Mike, it is important because, like we were talking earlier about, is it ever too late? If you're on the age pension and you start 2 years before you retire, and we can get it so you get an income of say $10,000 a year, that might not sound much, but an extra $200 a week if you're on the pension makes a huge difference to your lifestyle. So it never is too late to start. Even
You'll be able to afford a taxi.
Yeah. No, yeah. We're assuming that it's after tax, Mike. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just even that small amount can make a difference.
That's the point. I agree with you, Paul. I agree with you.
And Rod, no doubt you've seen a lot of that over the years where people leave it too late and don't get going on it.
Yeah, too many people are looking for the perfect strategy, which doesn't exist, and they're always worried about stuff. They're worried about property prices are a bit high, you know, share market's a bit high. But you know, you go back, and we talk about this in some of our other sessions. But you go back to say 1990, you know, and the median price of a Sydney property was just over $100,000. You go, wow, it's over $1 million now. So, and at the time, people thought that was too high. So, you know, these things are always an issue. And if you have the right time, trying to wait for a good time in the market is almost impossible. Partly because when markets do come off, so picture last year, we've got the COVID outbreak, we're in lockdown, market's down 36%. How many people knocked on your door and said, quick, the world's looking terrible, I want to put money into the market? Most people that haven't done it don't want to. Some did. So some do because they realise it might be a good time. And as it turned out, it was another once in a lifetime opportunity. And for people that are getting good advice from people that have got a long-term view, they were saying this is probably going to be a good time to accelerate putting money in. It might not be the bottom. We don't know where bottoms are, but we know that whenever markets go down, they over-exaggerate. So we're probably going to be looking good on the other side. But the key is, forget about markets where they are. Get started. And that would apply, by the way. We talked about real financial planning, but same with business planning. You know, there's never a bad time to start. The best time to start is when you've got some form of it, you're thinking about it, and once again, work out who can help you, and you've got a great team right here who can help you with all of that.
Absolutely. All right. Let's hear about the value.
Okay, look, I'll start on this. Basically, the value we give as planners is just to be part of your trusted advice team, right? We're here to help. We're here to help create the plan for you, and we're here to keep it going for you. So most of the things that we do, people theoretically can do it themselves, but they just don't. They don't get started. They don't keep on the right track. We help them define goals, as we've all spoken about. When people come in, they think they know what they want, but when they actually have a discussion, you find out that it's actually not that it's something completely different. So we do all that. You know, we help them save tax because, let's face it, we do a really good plan and make it 10%. If you lose half of it on tax that you shouldn't, then you've lost most of the value out of the plan. So the distinction is planning, but it's also the right structuring and the right way to do the plan to minimise tax and all the other government legislative barriers to saving. Yeah, that's our job, just to help you manoeuvre through the minefield, I suppose. Mike, you got some thoughts?
So one of the things we talk about at A2B is helping people take control of their wealth, and take control of their business. And how do we do that? It's there in number 3, ongoing coaching, mentoring, advice, and support. And I think that's probably the biggest value that we offer, because we do what we do. We are able to sort of talk people through the strategies, talk them through their goals, make people comfortable. They can sleep at night, knowing that they're on track, knowing that they've got control of where they're going. They also know that, look, I'm making a conscious decision to cut my lifestyle back by X dollars, because I know when I look at my my tracking, this is going to get me to where I'm going. Now, whatever that number is, but if you don't know that number, you tend not to do anything. It's much the same as any sort of sport or something like that. You need to know what your what you've got to get extra to be able to win at your sport. If you're a runner, you run to a time. If you're a swimmer, you do the same thing. So it is much, if you understand what you need to do, you can then achieve it. If you've got no idea what's going to go on, you probably won't make an effort. You're going to sit on the lounge and watch somebody else do it. So that's I think our biggest value is helping people. We coach them through that.
So it's more than taking control of your business, it's taking control of your life.
Taking control of your life. Taking control of your finances. Yeah, it is. But it's also, it's a good feeling. It personally, and we know that because we see it. When people go, I've got control. I know where I'm going. I know where I'm going in life, and I know what I can spend and what I've got to save, and I'm going to get where I want to go. That's pretty powerful to be able to help somebody do that.
Yeah, and it goes to their personal satisfaction, what they really want to do, what they can spend their time on, what freedom means for them.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
It's one of the the best things about our job is it being able to help people get there where they want to go.
Yeah, and seeing the light bulbs go on.
Yep. Absolutely.
That moment of clarity is always very good, isn't it? So.
It is. Totally agree, Paul. Yes. So
And I'll just chip in there with, the thing with getting someone to help you with this too, there's no shortage of information out there. One of the best-selling books in Australia in the last 10 years has been a book called The Barefoot Investor. It's a good book, and people pay their $25 for that book. It's got a recipe in there, and albeit that recipe is to how to get to about 60,000 a year for life, but it's still a recipe. But the reality is, people buy a book, they don't put it into action. When they come to an accountant and advisor and they pay them some money, guess what? They get it all done. So making that commitment to get advice and to pay for that advice, when we pay for advice, we actually get it done. It's the same as when we pay a personal trainer, when we pay a business coach, when we pay someone, we're more likely to execute, and that's a big chunk of the value as well. So yeah, I can't reiterate enough that get started. You've got good people there. Yeah, it's a fun process to go through.
Yeah, and the experts will guide you through. You don't need to have all the answers. They're going to ask the questions that will prompt the answers to come out because they're inside of you.
Yeah, and as Rob was saying earlier, the good thing about our group, I don't know if we're allowed to use the word independent. Are we allowed to, Rob?
We're not, but I'll explain to people why that is. And
Yeah.
And ASIC has tried to set up good things to stop the wolves masquerading in sheep's clothing, but they've made it very extreme. So anyone that may get any bit of commission on anything can't say independent. And I'll give you a good example. Most of us, when we help young people into insurance, get paid a small commission to get them in. So that precludes you from saying you're independent. And most young people wouldn't get insurance unless they did that. And you guys obviously charge a fee for service. It's up front. You don't take investment commissions from anything. So yeah, you're a fee for service advisor. You have a wide amount of financial products you can use, including property. So that makes you unique to a lot of those institutions I was talking about, where they say, "Oh, I don't buy property." So you're able to give holistic, good, real financial planning advice. But yeah, we're lobbying ASIC at the moment to try and get more clarity about how that word's used, because there's about a very small number of people in Australia that can actually say they're independent, which is a pity, because we do need to be able to distinguish between that institutional pushed business and self-employed advisors who are aligned with a non-institutional group who are simply out there trying to help their clients with a fee-for-service program.
And I think that's why we like GPS, because you guys aren't product-based. It's very much on the strategy. And as was shown today, the strategy that you do is actually everything. The product is the last part of the journey.
It's ironic. The product is good advice. Yeah. So it's not, the other bits come with it, and they're completely different for everyone, because everyone's got a different starting point. And you guys are doing a great job. Your clients are in good hands. So I'd encourage anyone out there who knows they should be doing something to send an email, pick up the phone, do something now before the moment subsides, and make some time to come in and talk about how you want your future to be really, really good.
Great. And
Thanks,
on that note, that's a perfect way to summarize the next steps. If there are any further questions, please jump in. It's not too late to ask. But the key message here today, I think, is it's clear that no matter where you are today, you need to start. Get started, take the first step, be accountable, take control of your business, of your life. This is a good thing. It's knowing where you are and where you're going. So the first step is to contact ATB Wealth today. That would be the logical step to take, because these guys, as we've heard, they've got the foundations and everything in place to help bring it out of you.
Thank you, Anna. And I'm going to quote this. You're probably going to correct me, because I know you know your quotes.
Some of
The
them.
journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step.
That's it.
And who was that?
Was it Lao Tzu
John-
or Sun Tzu?
John F. Kennedy as well. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
JFK. He may have borrowed it from someone else, but when I attribute it to JFK.
Okay.
And he also added that, what was it? I can't, sorry, I've forgotten that. But the thing is, that first step for most people is just reaching out for help. If you've got good people, sit down with them. They can take you through it. They're not going to rush you. They're just going to go at your pace, as you're ready. And no matter where you're starting in terms of knowledge, they'll help you understand what you're getting into completely before you move forward with anything.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rob. You've been an amazing, insightful, very practical tips and very easy to follow. You've been a wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael and Paul, any final comments as we wrap up?
Look,
I'll
sorry.
let Paul go first then.
I was going to say, Mike. Look, as we've all said today, financial planning is not difficult. It's just something that you need to do, I suppose, is the best way to put it. So, the service that we offer is very much mentoring and helping people. And it's always the client's best interest that we've got at heart. We're actually trying to help people have better lives. I can't emphasize that enough. it's all about the client for us, because if they do well, then everything else happens for us as well. So it's just all about what we can do for people.
Thanks, Paul. And look, I totally agree with that. I think today what we're trying to convey to our audience is what financial planning actually should be about. And you know, if people out there are getting this from their financial plan, it's fantastic. That's good to hear, because we will all be better off. However, if they're not getting this from their financial planners, then they should talk to us about taking the first step, identifying goals, working through the process, and putting in things in place that are going to get them to where they need to be. And on that note, I'd just like to thank you, Anna, very much for being our host. As always, you brighten the whole thing up for us. Thank you very much, Rob, for joining us and giving us your pearls of wisdom, years of experience. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
And Michael, is it
It's a
too
pleasure.
late?
Keep up the great work, team. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Michael, is it too late for a question? We've just got one that's jumped on in here.
Yes.
If once we have met you and discussed our needs, are we able to meet via Zoom? So I suspect this is.
Look, I think what's happened is that the world has changed through COVID, right? And we talk to people on telephones and Zoom and face to face. I've got to say, and I think I've talked to Rob about this, and I think he agrees with me. I like meeting people face to face, but I also recognise that if I'm conducting Zoom meetings, I can be much more efficient and I can actually meet more people. So I think as we come out of COVID, there's going to be a balance between physically meeting people, catching up on Zoom, and, you know, getting people in a room again. So absolutely, yes, Zoom is a great option to, you know, talk to people.
To balance it out. Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Suzanne, for the question. Appreciate that. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you once again, Rob and Michael and Paul.
Thank you.
Great, another great session. Our next
Thank you, Anna.
session will be in May. And of course, check out the YouTube channel, ATB Partners. And this session will be available up there sooner than you can say financial planning.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Rob. Really enjoyed the chat.
Pleasure. Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.